Now, for much of the time, historical buildings and modern ones exist side by side without much controversy, but occasionally something old gets in the way of progress. And the old thing this time is not a building, but this tree behind me, because this appears to be one of the last of 99 trees that was planted in Birmingham during the Joseph Chamberlain era in 1876. And it appears that it could well be in the way of the extension of the metro and the redevelopment of this area, Centenary Square. It's caused quite a controversy, with people up in arms that something as old as this should be felled. But is there an alternative? Could the tree be kept? And is the tree as old as the protesters think it is? All this and more as we branch out onto Broad Street for this week's Doorstep History. The potential felling of the tree has caused a lot of media interest, with newspapers, TV and radio stations all eager to talk about it. It's an old tree which seems to have captured the imagination. So we've been speaking to both sides of the argument. First of all, to people behind the metro. So behind you there, Mark, we've got this magnificent old tree, and there's lots of speculation that because the metro is going to come down here, it would mean the removal of the tree.
Well, we're certainly doing all we can to look into ways of saving the tree if at all possible. No one likes to see a beautiful tree chopped down, and if we can save it from our perspective, then we certainly will.
Now, this is a very important tree. It is, in fact, we think the last or one of the last trees that were planted over 140 years ago as part of the great renaissance of Birmingham back in the Chamberlain days. And we're just absolutely horrified to think that to put a tramway in, which is supposed to be green, no pollution of the atmosphere, we have to chop down this fantastic 140-year-old tree. It's the last big tree here. It's surrounded by big buildings, even bigger buildings coming as we see now with the headquarters of HSBC. And we're just really, really sad to hear that it might have to go. And we're asking the people of Birmingham to join us and say to Birmingham City Council and to say to the transport undertaking, go back to the drawing board. Of course we want your tram, but we've had double-decker buses running up and down here since 1900. I can't believe that you can't get a tramway up Broad Street without chopping down all these trees.
What I would say is that for every tree that we ever have to bring down in the course of metro works, we always try to plant at least 2 for every one at locations around the city, which we agree with the City Council.
A tree is a tree. They'd say chop this tree down, plant 2 to replace it.
Of course they would, wouldn't they? And then we've just got to wait 140 years for them to get that big, if they do. There's some newer ones just there, and I noticed one already not doing very well. This tree has survived 2 world wars, the worst smog and fog that anybody can think of, 3 reconstructions of Centenary Square. It survived all that, 2 new libraries, and now we're going to chop it down to put a few services in so we can put a tram in. I just don't believe it.
Because the argument would be that this isn't any ordinary tree. It's one of Birmingham's oldest trees, possibly 140 years old.
Well, as I understand it, yes, and certainly it's a part of the city's heritage, which we'll do all in our power if we can to protect and preserve.
So people would say perhaps, why couldn't the route be moved a little bit further across Broad Street or something so it doesn't actually go near to the tree?
It's not so much the route itself, it's the utilities which have to be shifted from underground, things like sewer pipes, gas pipes, that sort of thing. And to put the tramway through, you can't have a tramway running over those utilities, you have to shift them to one side. I think that's the possible cause of the problem in terms of the metro for the tree.
Well, we just don't accept that, do we? I mean, let's be honest. If you went into the centre of London or any of the big cities where there is a really important landmark, then they reroute the underground services, they put them in service tunnels, and we've certainly seen that done in London. And we know, goodness gracious me, this is a state-of-the-art tramway system. This is the year 2016. We can land people on the moon. I cannot believe that a few utility companies can't get their services from there to there without chopping down that 140-year-old tree. And I can tell you now that way over 1,000 people already in a very short period of time are saying exactly the same. We say back to the drawing board.
To build things like extra service tunnels may add to the cost of the metro?
I don't know how much this metro's cost at the moment, but it's cost millions of pounds. I can tell you now that building underground service tunnels doesn't cost millions of pounds. And excuse me, last time I remember, all the companies who supply our services, didn't they all make millions of pounds worth of profits? And I tell you what, a lot of those companies are like German and French. And if you went to the centre of Germany and told them you were going to chop that tree down in order to put a tramway in, I think they'd drum you out of town.
So is there any environmental benefit for keeping the tree, do you think?
Just try breathing. It's as simple as that. And that's the other question about big trees and little trees. I don't know at the moment, looking at it, how many leaves there are on that tree, but there are an awful lot. And then go and have a look at a little tree like they replace it with and see how many leaves are on there. Every single leaf is taking diesel pollutants out of the atmosphere. This is the air that I breathe, you breathe, our children breathe, and our grandchildren breathe. And I understand that there is an air monitoring station near to here that shows that the air in this part of Birmingham is amongst the dirtiest anywhere in the country. If we chop that tree down there, it's about to get a bit dirtier. Every tree we chop down, more and more pollutants stay in the atmosphere. Not only does it give us oxygen, it also takes all the pollutants out of the atmosphere. We really have got to try and save these trees.
This tree is mentioned in the Gardener's Chronicle of 1876, when Birmingham City Council was congratulated for being the very first city in the country to line a street with trees, and they mention Broad Street, and as far as to mention that the sight of the trees gladdens the hearts of most hard-hearted of persons. And I'm paraphrasing because I can't remember the exact words. This tree is historically important. Now, I've been asking since May why it has to be removed. Only last week I found out it's the trees. And I'm also a planning councillor, and I've had a look at the development for Centenary Square.
Apparently the current plans as they stand don't accommodate this tree anyway, so that tree may well possibly go even if the metro wasn't here.
That is a separate argument and a discussion I've had with the Deputy Leader, and I know Birmingham Trees for Life, of which I represent the council on Birmingham Trees for Life, have asked why fell the tree, use it as a part of Centenary Square.
You're on the planning committee?
Yes.
But were you on the meeting when it was approved for plans?
Yes.
So did you voice much opposition then?
Oh yes, we did, because I can see an awful lot of problems. I've asked the Deputy Leader to do something, make a change to the plans for the tree to preserve it, make it an important part of Centenary Square, and I've yet to hear anything more on that.
And we'll have more on this fast changing story later in the programme. Now, regular viewers will know that from time to time in this series we've been following the Equalities in Sandwell project called Our Spake, talking and looking at how dialect has changed across the Black Country and how you can distinguish certain words between different towns. Here's a little bit more of some of the films that they've made, and this week some of the words spoken in Oldbury.
Every pub had an outdoor where you could buy beer to take away, and then was in the days when your mums could send you to fetch it and they would serve you and you would take it home, and fags and whatever, because that was the closest we got to a convenience store back in the day. You didn't have convenience stores, you didn't have shops that opened till 8-9. You had the outdoor, and that was what they were specifically designed for, to buy drink outdoor and take it home. I loved it, yeah. And we was often sent more so by friends. You know, parents wouldn't think twice to giving us a couple of quid, go and get us some beer from the outdoor, and they'd just give it you.
like a lounge bar like the one over the road. It's called a lounge bar. You know, there ain't no snug where you can have a game of cards or dominoes, like, you know. It's all gone.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the characters have died, like, you know.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it gone. The old community.
Pubs used to have, as well as the bars and the lounge, they also have an outdoor which was purely for sales of pop, crisps, this sort of thing. Allegedly, but quite often, in fact, one of my aunties, if she wasn't here, I popped down to the Rising Sun, and there she'd be in the outdoor having a pint. And my dad used to be the same. But the license, the notice above the outdoor said, no drinking in here.
Now, after the break, we'll be going to West Bromwich and talking about West Bromwich in the Second World War. And we'll continue our root and branch investigation into the most famous tree in Birmingham. Welcome back to Doorstep History, which is coming to you today from Centenary Square in the heart of Birmingham. We'll have more from here later, but now we're going a few miles up the road to West Bromwich, and a special exhibition has opened which is looking at West Bromwich during the Second World War. There's a great display of photographs which have all come from a new book which is to be released before Christmas. I went along to have a look at preview of the exhibition. An exhibition of photographs showing West Bromwich in the Second World War, which are due to appear in a new book, are on display at the former public building in the town centre. Many of the pictures had been collected by local historian Stan Wilkes, who recently passed away.
And for many years he collected lots and lots of material and people's reminiscences, and his intention was to write this book. Sadly, the last 10 years of his life he wasn't very well. In fact, he was dogged by ill health. So when he passed away, he made a bequest in his will that money should be given to West Bromwich Local History Society and this book should be done.
The exhibition shares some of the material and also reveals the experiences of two local individuals who inspired the project, Stan Wilkins and Albert Wilkes. Stan Wilkins was a local jazz band drummer in West Bromwich until he went to India in 1943 at the age of 21. And Albert Wilkes was 36 when war broke out. His father was a former Villa footballer who had set up a photographic business in the town focusing on sports photography, and Albert followed in his footsteps. He was first called up to an Army Ordnance Unit, then applied for a transfer to the Army Film and Photographic Unit, and was allocated to follow General Montgomery and British troops all the way from the Normandy landings to Berlin. And he produced a remarkable collection of photographs, some of which are in the Imperial War Museum, but many, such as these here, have never been seen before in public. Lily Willits joined the Land Army at the age of 17. Here she is pictured in 1943 with a make-do and mend coat, which was made from a grey army blanket.
Well, we had no coupons to buy any clothes with at the time, and my mum bought a blanket off somebody and took me to a lady's house down Stony Lane in West Brom. I always remember her name, it was Mrs. Farrington. And she made me this coat out of that blanket. I think it was an officer's blanket because it wasn't an army blanket as I knew an army blanket, brown, khaki coloured and all that sort of thing. This was more grey, so it was quite a nice coat.
Now, part of the exhibition has got this fantastic collection of then and now photographs, so here's a montage of some of the best.
and we've got a number of events happening, workshops, activities, talks relating to the project in general. But the culmination will be the production of Stan's book, if we want to call it that.
Now, from a tremendous exhibition back to a tremendous tree. And Trees for Life are keen to stress the environmental impact of having trees in the city centre.
The problem we have is, so far, the metro has, because of the metro, trees have been decimated. There were lovely trees in Corporation Street. There's none now. It's a concrete jungle. And Birmingham has more above average levels of NO2. Trees absorb that NO2, and moreover, the people of Birmingham love their trees and are very proud of the fact we are a very green, leafy city. Considering we're the second city, we are a very leafy city, and people are proud of those trees.
Now, for every tree that is knocked down, though, the council and the authorities will replace it with 2 other trees.
Where the engineers are telling us the services underground are in such a mess, there is no room to put the 2 trees back. So we're having trees taken out and being told, yeah, you got 2 trees, but we've got nowhere to put them. It's a load of rubbish. It is an empty promise.
So is there any environmental benefit for keeping the tree, do you think?
Just try breathing. It's as simple as that. And that's the other question about big trees and little trees. I don't know at the moment, looking at it, how many leaves there are on that tree, but there are an awful lot. And then go and have a look at a little tree like they replace it with and see how many leaves are on there. Every single leaf is taking diesel pollutants out of the atmosphere. This is the air that I breathe, you breathe, our children breathe, and our grandchildren breathe. And I understand that there is an air monitoring station near to here that shows that the air in this part of Birmingham is amongst the dirtiest anywhere in the country. If we chop that tree down there, it's about to get a bit dirtier. Every tree we chop down, more and more pollutants stay in the atmosphere. Not only does it give us oxygen, it also takes all the pollutants out of the atmosphere. We really have got to try and save these trees.
Meanwhile, current plans for the redevelopment of the square do not appear to include the tree, and this may now be reviewed. The City Council stresses no decisions have been made, and they told me that any decision will need to be balanced against the wider economic and environmental benefits for the city.
But I would stress it's not just the metro which is putting the tree in jeopardy. It's also the development of Centenary Square as well. Now, Centenary Square is a magnificent asset for the city, and the council are looking at ways of enhancing that. What I would say is that the metro is also a significant economic asset for the city, and bringing it down Broad Street and beyond to 5 Ways is going to have significant economic advantages for the region, not just the city, in the years to come.
It's certainly exciting times with the prospect of the metro coming along Broad Street to 5 Ways, then possibly even further at some stage to Hagley Road.
It is, yes. It's a very exciting time for them with the metro system as a whole. We're expanding the network around Birmingham and in Wolverhampton and the Black Country as well. So once those schemes are embedded and up and running, it's going to the economic benefits for the region are going to be fantastic.
Yeah. There's been significant numbers using the metro since it's been extended across the city centre as well, hasn't it?
That's right, yeah. Patronage has risen something like 25% since the city centre extension opened in May this year. So there's clearly a proven demand for the service, and people are saying we want more metro, and that's what we're endeavouring to do.
The opening of the metro was much anticipated, and the publicity was ramped up when Ozzy Osbourne came to town to unveil a tram in his honour. Fast forward a day to Bank Holiday Monday, and the lump of heavy metal, that's the tram, was ready to run along the fully completed route from Grand Central to Wolverhampton for the first time. Big Centre News was on board the first passenger carrying tram as it arrived at Grand Central just before 8 o'clock, and this same tram was then given a send-off as it left for Wolverhampton at 8 o'clock. This completes the £128 million extension, which has seen the replacement of all trams and also the delivery of 21 new ones. We noted earlier that Broad Street was planted with trees in 1876, and a number of Edwardian postcards show Broad Street lined with them. However, having consulted my own book on Broad Street and newspaper evidence, I can't see any trees on this photograph taken in 1919, which shows this street at the time the land was sold for the construction of the Hall of Memory. The Hall of Memory opened in 1925, and these postcards show the area around it in the late 1920s. Well, can you spot the tree that was said to have been planted in 1876, about 45 years before the photographs was taken? Well, nope, neither can I. This grainy 1938 picture shows the relevant part of the street, and on closer inspection, saplings can be seen growing there. Now, if these saplings are the current trees, then this would indicate that the now famous tree was planted sometime around the early to mid-1930s, making it around 80 years old. So it appears that the current protesters may have assumed the tree was one of the original ones, because it does look older than those near to it, but it appears it's not. Well, even if the tree is only 80 years old or so, and not 140, should that make any difference as to whether it's felled or not? What do you think? So that's it then from this edition of Doorstep History, which has come to you from Centenary Square. Next week we'll be back at Soho House in Handsworth. Hope you can join us then, but for now, thanks for watching.